Good afternoon and welcome to Back to Campus Party South Africa from a very cold Johannesburg on my side and a very electricity-free house. I'm sitting surrounded by candles and it's quite a nice way to deliver this talk, just the reminder to connect back into our inherent selves. And so today I am talking to you. My name is Robyn Whittaker. I'm from Kaleidoscope Lights, which has been set up really to better understand how we can facilitate and move into deep collaboration and a real understanding of the evolution of functional impact ecosystems, how we connect to each other well, and moving into a space where we really understand that we are deeply interconnected and linked as human beings, and we are deeply interconnected and linked to the systems in which we operate as well. We live in a really unprecedented age, an age that is more interconnected than we have ever seen before, in which we can access and participate in these kinds of events. We can meet and become friends with people from completely different spaces in the world. And yet we also live in an age where we are seeing an increasing pull towards isolation and a return to fundamentalism that many regard as a flight back to safety. And so today, Jade, if we can have the first slide up, what I would like to be calling for and what I'm inviting us into a conversation about is an invitation into love and connection and calling into being our human ecosystem. So together, calling into being what our full potential is, and finding ways to connect with and bring those who find that kind of concept fear-inducing to join. So I think in this campus party forum, certainly from many of the presentations that I've been listening to over the 3 days, we definitely have a community who believes in the power of connection, who believes in the power of our inherent humanity and creativity, and who is very excited about the future that is coming. But our whole world is not in that same space. And so my belief is those of us who long for, who are working towards a system like this, a connected ecosystem that's co-creative and generative, need to learn how to understand better how to invite others along with us so that we can really call this kind of system into being. If you could change for me, Jade. Our fundamental wiring as human beings, which has been shown over and over again through varieties of medical, biological studies, even economic and business studies, is that we are wired for connection. At a spiritual level, and the picture I have there is one of my very favorite. It's a book that I'm loving at the moment. It's Archbishop Desmond Tutu and the Dalai Lama, The Book of Joy. Absolutely superb book. At a scientific level, at a personal level, we all know this to be true. We require connection. We require being part of a system, or at least relationships where we are seen, valued and loved for ourselves. And we require this at a community level as well. At a biological level, there's increasing evidence that biologically we function much better when we are connected to each other, when we are connected to ourselves, and when we are connected to our environment. And even, as I say, at an economic level, where there is so much of a pullback against this connection, this globalization, what we can see is that there are many, many economic theories coming through about the power and value of connectedness and of common co-creative understanding in building a much stronger, much more viable economic system that serves everybody, not just the few. And so really, as Matthew Lieberman has described it, connection is a superpower. And it's one that we need to learn how to amplify and to use better. Thanks, Jade. You can move on. The trick, though, with connection is that we are unable to connect with others until we have been able to connect with ourselves. And for me, when we talk about the time that we are in, this is perhaps the biggest gift of the period of COVID, is an increasing realization for all of us that we are disconnected from ourselves. The time that this has offered us is an opportunity to truly understand the need for us to practice self-leadership first before we can go out and try and change the world. Our connectedness to ourselves is essential in times of crisis, in times of pain, and in times of suffering. When we are disconnected from ourselves, it is impossible for us to bring benefit to the whole. And so, really, if we wish to move into a space where we operate as an interconnected community, as an ecosystem of living beings, which can benefit and offer support to one another and to our broader system, what is of the essence is that we really do need Thank you, Jade. We can move on. Thank you. So in essence, the request for us to all move forward together is a request for us to all move deeper into ourselves as well. Jade, you can go to the next slide. Thank you. I've asked Jade to help me with the slides because, quite honestly, when the full slide is up and I can't see myself, which is what happens when it is up, it just feels like I'm talking into ether, and I would far rather feel that I'm talking to you. In essence, this concept of the pendulum effect, the moment of transition that happens when societies are about to enter into an entirely new phase, an entirely new dynamic, is quite well known. And the pendulum effect really speaks to what I mentioned when I opened up, that you can increasingly feel, and certainly in this forum, there's been a lot of discussion about the fact that we are moving from an old system which really celebrates autonomy, it celebrates control, it celebrates power, it operates on a system of he who knows best wins all. And we are moving into a system which celebrates connection and celebrates the ability to co-create together, and recognizes the deep individuality of every living being, and particularly in our human society, every human being, and the value that the individual can bring to the whole. And yet, as we're feeling this push into the new, so we also are experiencing the pullback into the old, and we're seeing a real schism start to develop between societies that are retreating to safety, retreating to fundamentalism, tribalism, really looking to be self-protectionist, against this growing swell, and it excites me tremendously to feel this growing swell coming, of people and individuals and systems that are longing for connection and for a co-created future. And I think that the trick here, and the reason that I've put the R, as many people do, in brackets, is that partly this is revolutionary. We talk about fourth industrial revolution. The trick is not actually the fourth industrial. It's not the technology. It is the component around the revolution, which for me speaks to access, and it speaks to equality, and it speaks to the ability of all of us to participate. If we don't create an inclusive culture and an inclusive society which welcomes all, even those who are not engaged in the development of the technology, into this age, we will miss the revolution part, and we will miss the evolution part. We will miss the opportunity to take our human society into something greater and better than anything that we have seen in the past. You can move, please, Jade. Thank you. And this is, really being increasingly recognized. Don Tapscott spoke yesterday, and so Don is really one of the leading experts on blockchain. And what was very clear in his talk was this fact that what we thought would automatically happen because of the ability of technology to connect us is not necessarily going to automatically happen. It requires a choice on the part of us as humanity around which direction do we want technology to take us. And Richard Riesch, in essence, states that in order for us to survive the digital revolution, we absolutely and essentially have to tap into our human connection, because digital, while it is able to bring us together, is also able to become incredibly divisive. And we need to ensure that as the human beings that are creating and crafting these systems, that the digital revolution really enables and takes us closer towards human connection rather than further away, or we are at risk of losing the essence of ourselves. You can continue, Jade. So I'd like to speak a little bit about Theory U, which is one of the leading theories about societal evolution and where we are headed. It's an absolutely magnificent theory. For those of you who haven't come across it, I would strongly recommend it. This is probably the easiest book to read. It's The Essentials of Theory U by Otto Scharmer. And Otto Scharmer essentially makes the case for the movement, the groundswell, and the increasing momentum that we are seeing being built towards a societal shift and paradigm transition of interconnectedness and ecosystem consciousness. And for me, one of the most compelling quotes that I take from him, which informs my work, is that in the emerging 4.0 stage of our economy, the natural self-interest of the players starts to extend to a shared awareness of the whole ecosystem. Ecosystem awareness requires us to open our hearts and to internalize the views and concerns of other stakeholders. And the result of this is decisions and outcomes that benefit the whole system and not just my part of it. Now, this is fundamentally different from how our current systems operate. It really requires a massive and fundamental shift in our perception of how we are connected to one another. When Otto talks about the opening of the heart and the ability to internalize the views and concerns of others, he's not talking about understanding that other people have a different perspective or seeing how closely we can match up our perspective with their perspective. He is talking about a real consciousness of the shared future that we all hold together, and that our different perspectives are really important to one another, that they are able to complement, they are able to challenge, they are able to draw us closer together. And in order to gain the full value, we need to almost set down the boundaries that we create between ourselves, between what my opinion and your opinion is, and start to create a combined opinion that is our opinion. And that is the moment of internalization, where we allow what we think and what we believe to meet up with and to merge with what others think and believe, and to become something greater and stronger than the sum of the parts. You can carry on, please, Jade. Thank you. So this is a beautiful graph, and I hope it's visible. Essentially, what Theory U talks about is it talks about the progression to our stage of interconnected humanity and to an ecosystem understanding of our society as passing through three critical phases. And these really are the moment of moving from closed mind, closed heart, and closed will. So assumption and judgment, fear and criticism, into open heart, open mind, and open will. And open heart really speaks to compassion. Open mind speaks to curiosity and the willingness to engage. And open heart speaks to open will speaks to courage. And the courage to embark on a journey where we do not know the outcomes, and we are not sure about how we are going to get to any outcomes because we haven't encountered this journey before. And he references this movement through the process from closed mind, closed heart, closed will to open mind, open heart, open will as transitioning down a U and up the other side, taking time to really immerse into a system, immerse into a conversation, and start to deeply understand and connect with the others that are in that system until we can reach a common point of a common marker point where we start to shift from the separate I's into the collective we's, the collective creativity, and an understanding of that we are going to build something together that is larger than the individual components. The Presencing Institute, which Otto founded, talks through 4 different stages, and these reference really the different stages of society that we have passed through as humanity. So stage 1.0 is your habitual stage. It is very much about centralized control and hierarchy. So this would be sort of a feudal system. Stage 2.0 is the ego system, where there is a lot of focus on me, what I can get. There's a lot of focus on the facts of the matter. People engage through debate. So 2 opinions come into conflict with one another, and somebody wins and somebody loses. And this is typically your competitive type of system. So your prototypical capitalist type of system. Then moving through to the 3.0 stage of our society, which is a stakeholder conscious stage. And what we can see is that many corporate structures are moving, not all of them, but many of them are moving or have moved into this 3.0 stage, which is around a more empathetic understanding of others' needs, dialogue, so understanding that you and I can both have an opinion, they can both be valid, we can both have needs that need to be met. And this type of system could be described as networked. So when you hear the phrases shared value or conscious capitalism or triple bottom line, this is very much what we're talking about when we talk about this shared value state of our economy. There is, however, a state beyond that, and that is the stage that I believe strongly that we are moving into. And it is this groundswell that we are starting to feel, and we hear the words coming through over and over again. We hear them synchronously coming through from all over the globe. These words around collaboration, ecosystem, together we are more. It is not necessarily the generalized state of our world, but there are pockets of powerful voices coming through that are calling for this co-creative, generative, ecosystem-orientated system to come into place. And my invitation today is for us to understand better how we move into that, how we understand and how we invite others to join the journey towards the ecosystem state of being. This is quite a difficult conversation. So for me, I was in a meeting a couple of years ago, probably 2 years ago, where Martin Kalunga-Banda, who heads up the Africa branch of Theory U, it's Ubuntu Lab, they're large MOOCs that are run, as well as collections of people who really are seeking to see the Theory U ecosystem space come into being. He spoke and he pulled up this graph, and suddenly I understood why it was feeling so incredibly hard and very tiring, the kinds of conversations that I was in, because I started to understand that my philosophical standpoint sits in the 4.0 system, but continuously I was needing to re-engage. I did a lot of corporate engagement. I was needing to re-engage into systems that were 2.0 and 3.0. And the meeting of minds, you had to translate all the time what the value was of the ecosystem approach into these spaces that don't necessarily see that as valuable. And so I've come to this realization that what we really need is an understanding of how. So we know there is a will to move towards the ecosystem stage of being. We kind of know what we might need to do, but we are not too sure how to go about doing that and how to invite others along. Now, if it wasn't an ecosystem state of being, we'd probably be very happy to leave everybody else behind. But the whole point of this 4.0 system is that it is inclusive, it is connected, and it wants the value that others have to bring. And so we need those of us who are willing a 4.0 system to come into being, really do need to understand how do we invite others along, and how do we reduce the fear that comes with movement from a known system into an unknown one. If you can move, please, Jade. So the Presencing Institute is very aware that not everybody necessarily will want to move into the 4.0, and it really identifies the schism between the evolutionary phase of society and the regressive phase of society as being a divide between presencing, showing up, being willing, stepping in, and absencing, which is really denying, blocking any unpleasant sensations, deluding, and destroying. And without going into any details, I think when we look at our world today, what we can see is we can see on the one hand this strong pull into a new norm that is better, that serves humanity better, that is open, that is gentle, that is loving and co-creative. And matched against that, we can see those who have vested interests in System 2.0 and even 1.0 sometimes. System 2.0, System 3.0, somewhat System 2 and 3, and there's definitely some ones still around, pulling back very hard against that. So without going into detail, I would really encourage you, when you look at what is being projected through the media, A, to ask, where does media sit in this diagrammatic scheme? And B, where is what they're reporting on sitting? Is it in the presencing component, or is it in the absencing component? And how you can tell quite easily is that where you are experiencing presencing, generally you will experience an energy that is very positive, and very affirmative. Where you're experiencing absencing, you will feel a lot of fear and a lot of anxiety present. Thanks, Jade. You can move on. And so my question today really is, where do we choose to sit? Because at the end of the day, this is what it is about. It is a choice. This division between absencing and presencing is very, very small, and it literally sits here. It sits in the choices that we make in any given situation, in the hardest situation, in the kinds of situations that we are seeing at the moment, where we have relatives dying from a disease that is really not pleasant for those who get it seriously. Are we absencing? Do we step right into that fear? Or are we presencing? Are we showing up with compassion, even where we may not be able to do something specific, but we are bringing into that space a willingness to be present, to be connected, and to bring our compassion and our love. Thank you, Jade. You can move on. So this is just a quick reflection backwards. I really felt I had to include this slide, and it is Don Tapscott's from yesterday, but I thought that it really represents the schism so beautifully. And Don spoke about the leadership for transformation and what we see in terms of the patterns that come out. And he said paradigm shifts involve dislocation, conflict, confusion, and uncertainty. So there is a lot of flux that's associated. This is not a smooth ride. New paradigms are nearly always received with coolness, even mockery or hostility. Those who have vested interests fight the change. The shift demands such a different view of things that often established leaders are the last to be won over, if at all. You can change, Jade. And I think we can see that. And I know personally for myself, it has always been, when you approach the world from a worldview of love and connection and wanting to be in relationship, the existing worldview tells you that you are wrong, that is touchy-feely, that is idealistic. I would like to position it differently. I believe that is how we are made as human beings. We are made for connection. And when we fail to walk into the bigger powers of love and connection, and we choose to self-protect and isolate, we damage ourselves tremendously, and we damage our society and our systems. And my belief is that we are reaping the rewards of this absencing that has been taking place at the moment. And that is why we need to fundamentally change our minds and walk into something that is much softer and much more connected. As I mentioned, the question is really how. And it is a big question, because if you ask any individual human being, do you believe our society needs to be more connected? Do you believe we need to be more collaborative? They will say yes. But when push comes to shove and we have to actually start doing it, it's much harder than we thought it would be. And so I fully believe that we have a good understanding of the why. We have a good understanding of the what might it look like if we collaborated well. But what we are not so clear on is the how. And for me, the how might be envisaged as we want to bake a cake together, or we want to build a model aeroplane. We have all the pieces, we have all the ingredients, we know that you need to put it all into a bowl, but it's actually insufficient to put all those pieces into a bowl together and then just expect they're going to turn into something delicious, or you're going to have a beautiful model aeroplane, or your chemical reaction is just going to happen. What is really required for this type of system to emerge is a deep understanding of how to facilitate connection. So it's kind of the magic juice of, or the magic moment in your baking, where you put something into the oven that you've mixed together, and this miracle happens, and you emerge with a product that is completely different and much nicer than its component parts. Thanks, Jade. You can carry on. Okay, this slide you just have to click through, thank you, until it gets to the end, so it's red at the end. So as I said, the difference lies not so much in the why or the what, but much more in the how. To start operating this kind of system, we need to start understanding that we have to create container spaces within which co-creation can happen. So we have to create the kinds of spaces into which people can enter and set down their ego and set down their agenda and start together to co-create without feeling threatened and without feeling fearful. It is really important to take time to first understand who's coming into the space and what are their vested interests, and then go through a process that allows you to reduce the level of vested interest in a particular outcome, to acknowledge it, but to say, in order to, let's imagine, let's future focus, rather than we focus on the thing you want, let's just think, what would the best look like? And that tends to allow people to set down their vested interest, and actually enter into a co-creative process together. I truly believe that the time has come that we need to really deeply value those within our system who are collaboration conveners, relationship hosts, and trust builders. Now, the thing with these people is they exist in every single organization, they exist in families, they exist in societies, but typically they are not loud and they are not highly visible. But anybody who's tried to get something done will know that there is a person in their organization that when they take their vision to that person, and if that person buys in, that person will collect the people who are required to achieve the vision. And they won't do it in a way that they're projecting what the vision has to be. They do it in a way of inviting others in order to participate in the creation of the vision, even though it's not necessarily their vision. Such people really have to embrace and be willing to have low visibility and to be part of something rather than the cause of something. And typically, they also bring a spirit which really facilitates an understanding that this is not about attribution. It's not about me, I did it, give me the glory and credit. It's much more about contribution. We did this together. It is a wonderful outcome, and we value the others who have done this with us. And most essential of all, one can collaborate just for the sake of collaborating, and you see a lot of that happening, and it's very energy draining, because sometimes you wind up collaborating in something that you don't necessarily fully believe in, or you wind up with far too many collaborative engagements on your hands. And so it is really essential for whatever the convening space is where people are moving into a collaborative framework together to maintain a clear purpose focus and to welcome into the light welcoming the light of purpose that actually allows the illumination of opportunities and the illumination of the way forward. You can continue, Jade. So we talk about evolving relational ecosystems. You can continue, Jade. I'm going to skip a few because I'm a bit short on time. There are many in education space. I just wanted to give a couple of examples. The exponential organization in the business space speaks directly to this model of doing things. Carry on, Jade. There are some amazing movements, societal movements that we're seeing coming to the fore. One in Morocco, the Tamkeen movement, one in Mexico. They're all over the place. They are jumping out, and it is this emergence of these synchronous movements that are moving towards a co-creative future. And carry on, Jade. Thank you. And finally, I would just like to talk a little bit about the kaleidoscope and why this is such an important image for me in thinking about that. That's fine. Thanks, Jade. You can continue. Just to the black screen, the one with the black kaleidoscope in it. So the kaleidoscope for me really represents this ability for a mechanism that can hold in place individual, different, perfectly formed, unique components that have their own color, their own shape, etc. But yet that when they are held in place together, when they are allowed to go through a process or a methodology, and when the light of purpose, the why, is shone through that, those individuals transform into something that is incredibly magnificent, very versatile, dynamic and fluid, and just offers these endless chance for beauty. If you can continue to the next slide and then the one after, that's it. Thank you. This is very relevant in the space of our SDGs. Goal number 17 of the SDG is collaboration, and there's a good reason for that. And that is that not one of the SDGs can be obtained until we obtain all of them. You can carry on, Jade. There we go. This is just to note the connector function, the ability of a connector to hold all the disparate pieces that need to be brought into relationship with one another lightly and in such a way that they can be moved and brought into proximity to one another. You can carry on. Thanks. Then there's just a little bit about the social network. So social network for people in this forum is probably very well understood. The power of the social network doesn't come in the individual social network. You can carry on, Jade. It really comes in the ability to see beyond our own social network. Carry on. And to connect. So this interconnectedness of connectors connecting to other connectors and bringing whole systems into proximity and relationship with one another is extraordinarily powerful. Carry on, Jade. You can just skip through to the last 2 slides, please. Thank you. So this, you can go back to that one. Thank you. So really the final question, and thank you for giving me the 2 minutes extra, is do we continue to speak into being and believe in systems of fear and control? Or do we choose to make that leap and speak into being, perceive and live systems of love and connection? Next slide. Thank you, Jade. And this is it. The power doesn't lie with somebody else. It lies with us. It lies in our collective and conscious choice and what we choose to bring into and to see and to create in our world. Thank you so much. I've really appreciated this opportunity to share with you.